Welcome to Eagle Spire Gaming. I'm your host, Crown, and today is October 25th, where we are talking about the formations of legends from the Devastation of Tallarn, specifically the two formations for the Solar Auxiliary. If you want to see the formations for the Space Marines, that's in my previous video. I'll leave a link to that in the info section. We got a lot of models to cover, so let's get started. As always, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up, and if you like the content, subscribe for more. And if you've got an opinion, comment it below. So, our first formation of legend is going to be the Loyalist formation. It is the Tallarn Reborn Carmine Ambush Tertio. It is 3 detachments of 4 Layman Russes, but each Layman Russ squadron is going to have its own weapon loadout. The only thing they all have in common, aside from there being 4 of them, is that they are the hull-mounted weapon is going to be a las cannon. No heavy bolters in this. For 515 points, you are getting 4 Layman Russes, with Vanquisher cannons, another squadron with Annihilator cannons, twin-length Annihilator las cannons, and another 4 with the Executioner plasma cannons. Each of those would normally cost you 175 points apiece, 10 points for the commander. 10 commander is going to be in that first squadron with the Vanquishers, and all of that would normally cost you 535 points. You are getting 20 points saved, discounted with this formation. You can then upgrade it, and it will cost you 615 points to do so. 615 points total. You are going to get 2 units of 4 Atheon Heavy Sentinels. Each of those would cost you 60 points, so your total would have been 655 points. You are getting it for 615, 40 points saved. Your special rule here is going to be the Ambush Tertio. These detachments are going to have forward deployment and scout. And it will take half of 3 different boxes of Russes, because each box there are 3 different boxes that Layman Russ come in. And one box has the Battle Cannon and Vanquisher Cannon. One box has the Annihilator las cannons and the Auto Cannon. And one box has the Executioner Plasma Cannon with the Demolisher Cannon. And you need 1 from each of those boxes. They come with 8, so you're going to have 12 Layman Russes that aren't going to be in this formation. You can use them for whatever else you want, and you can outfit them however you want. If you want more if you want more Demolishers, you can make 8 of them to Demolishers. So it's a little bit of a potluck, but you've got a lot of options there. And then if you upgrade it, it's the same number of tanks. You're just going to need the Sentinels out of 2 infantry kits. And you'll probably need those infantry for other things anyway, so you probably already have these Sentinels. What do I like about this box? Well, if you like Layman Russes, fantastic. You get a discount on a bunch of them. And you're getting slightly better, slightly cheaper Layman Russes. They're going to have Scout, which is going to give them +1 cover when they have +1 to their cover save when they have it, up to +2 bonus. And there's, of course, the points. If you have the starter box, you already have 4 Layman Russes that you probably put Vanquisher cannons on, and you probably put las cannons on, and you have 4 Sentinels. So you already have a good start there. If you bought the battle group, you have everything, and the starter, you have everything you need minus the proper turrets for the Layman Russes. So if you want a kit bash or proxy, you're going to be fine with that until you actually get the right cannon or make something, however you want to end up doing that. The cons to this box. Well, forward deployment on tanks is difficult to use. It's at the beginning of the game, you can drive your tanks forward before the first turn actually starts, or you can pull them back into a different position. But because this isn't a alternating turns, it's an alternating activations game, You don't need to hide your tanks from that alpha strike. You don't need to hide them from being shot first turn. So your best use for this is to get them forward more, so that you can control the narrative of the board. So you can take territory and use that to allow your other forces to move in, fill in the gaps, things like that. So what it really would do well with is some amount of heavy bolter hull mounts, so that you can use the point defense to take on some infantry. You don't get any of that, so having these guys right up in front, leading the charge in your army, not the greatest way to use them. And I'm a little disappointed myself, because it is an ambush tertio in the name. Ambush tertio, it's the rules, it's the special rule for them, and it's the special name for them. Forward deployment doesn't strike me as ambush. Infiltrate is quite a bit ambushy, but outflank would have been, I feel like outflank would have been really good for these guys. For this formation, it would have been much more thematic, and I would have liked to see a way for the Solar Auxiliary to have outflank. They don't have it at all, I think, and this formation would have been the perfect spot for it. But maybe that would have been too powerful. So we have what we have. Secondly, the main weapons choice on these tanks is just slight upgrades in situational use. So we have the las cannons are better than the annihilators are better than the vanquishers when you are shooting at infantry. And they're worse than the vanquishers when you're shooting into anything else. They do have a higher spike in damage, but percentage-wise, you're likely only to get 0.38 of damage done to a predator, whereas the vanquisher cannon gets 0.44. It's a small difference, so there's still not a whole wound there. And you could always spike 4 annihilators with just the main turret, could get a hypothetical 8 kills on the enemy tanks, whereas the vanquishers can only cap at 4. But we're looking at averages, we're looking at statistics. That's not going to happen that often. If you're banking on that happening that one time to win the game, it's going to be a really cool moment, but it's just not, it's not what's going to happen most of the time. And then when you compare the las cannon to the executioner, well, now it's just worse at hitting infantry, and the executioner is worse at hitting tanks. So we really just have this power scale of wants to shoot tanks the most, wants to shoot tanks less, but more towards infantry than this guy, and then this one, your bottom tier wants to shoot infantry the most and really doesn't want to be involved with tanks at all. Also, if I'm trying to shoot infantry with the executioner, I kind of want to have heavy bolters to help me shoot infantry with the executioner. I guess I'm a little picky about what I like to put on what I like to have in my turrets. And finally, along that line, the plasma executioner is only situationally better than the autocannon turret. Because one has more shots and a slightly worse AP. And that means if it's shooting into different kinds of cover, that just makes it better. Because most of your infantry is already going to have, they're either a 5 or a 6 anyway for saves. So a -1 AP is already enough to wipe out Solar Auxiliary. It's just, if you use the autocannons, then instead of the plasma executioner, now you only need the vanquishers from your starter kit and a single box of the annihilators with the autocannons to get 4 and 4. That would have been perfect, but we got what we got. So, what do I rate this box? I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. It's, despite its flaws, it's very easy to fit into a list. It's very easy to get, and it still has its purposes. It's still tanks. It's still little tanks that do little tank jobs. So 4 out of 5. Now we go to our traitorous formation. If you haven't watched the other video, you kind of get one for traitor, one for loyalist, and then with Alpha Legion Space Marines, where they kind of go both ways. We don't have Alpha Legion Solar Auxiliaries. They were really either one or the other, and they were expendable enough that you probably didn't need to worry about trade. If I don't think you're loyal to me, I'm just gonna kill you. Yeah, there's 10 more where you came from. So we have the Gilibad Oathsworn Thyros Siegebreaker Company, and that will cost you 550 points. It is a bunch of cannons. So you got 3 Storm Swords, which, as you know, have the Storm Swords Demolisher Cannon thing. It's a Demolisher Cannon with 1 more AP and 30-inch range. Beautiful weapon to be shooting at somebody. Unfortunately, it just has a whole bunch of other guns on it that don't really match with that range. You can't use it to demolish any buildings because it's just one weapon on one tank. So if you shoot at a building, it probably misses, and then you don't destroy the building. If it does wound, you do 1 wound to the building, and you still need to shoot with more things. That's 100 points that you just wasted on that. You've got some heavy bolters, but then you've also got the las cannons, and so you can't split fire. The lack of split fire on these tanks that have the ability to shoot at a building just makes it not that good of a choice, because you're paying a lot of points to try and kill not that many points of infantry inside a building. There's other benefits to taking out a building, but I'd rather be using something like, especially at this points cost, and you're not going to have the same range, but if you use this Auxiliary Super Heavy with the Hellhammer Cannon, then you have 2 shots on a vehicle with Demolisher. 2 of those for 200 points. I like to have, when I'm trying to do wounds to a building, I'd like to have the ability, I like to have the potential to do 4 wounds to a building, because then if half of them don't hit and wound, you still did 2 wounds. So, but even if you split them up and you said, hey, here's one Hellhammer, here's another, you could shoot at that building, and maybe the first one kills it, maybe the second one, and you don't have to worry about the second one, or maybe you need to use the second one. But all their other weapons can split fire into something else, except for any of the las cannons. Whereas this guy, 30-inch range, it's just too far away. You either want to be too far away, or you're not making good use of it. It's kind of, without the ability to properly split fire, it's just not a great choice. But you got a formation of 3 Storm Swords. That'll normally cost you 280. If you took them as 3 individual Storm Swords, as well as it costing you 3 detachments, or giving you 3 detachments, depending on how you want to look at it, it's 200. It would be 300 points. They're 100 points a piece. You get a discount of 20 just for taking the 3. Detachment of 4 Basilisks. These are the long-range artillery that the Solar Auxiliary has. They cost 10 points more than the 4 Medusas that you're also going to get. So you got 1 at 140, 1 at 130. That is a combined points of 550. I like artillery. They don't point at something and wipe it out. They provide you the ability to shoot at something that maybe only one other unit could have seen, and you've already fired them or you've lost them. You need the ability to do a little bit more damage to finish something off. They are damage anywhere on the board, and it lets you recapture the initiative there. If there's a unit that is potentially going to do damage it can still do damage to your things after you've done what you can with it. because that side of the table you've already activated everything. You still have one more thing that, yes, you could have bought more points over here, but you can use this over here too. You can use it wherever. It's got such range. It's got decent firepower. It's limited by volume of shots, and it does cost quite a bit. But I like them. I think they work well. I just wouldn't. I don't think I'd want to flex too hard into them and go too strong with. You're gonna lose out on board control, and you definitely don't want to have so many of them that they then get ambushed. They then get ambushed by by the Carmine ambush tertio, and you've got a bunch of Layman Russes with Vanquishers right in front of them. That's just gonna wipe them all out. So you can then upgrade this. It'll be 950 points upgraded, and you will have 3 more Storm Swords and 4 Basilisks. That comes out to, we already know the points for that, 970 points total. It saves you 20 points. We get Thyros Doctrine with this, and this is interesting. I like this. This is good. It is something completely different. I don't think there's rules for it anywhere else in the game. It's a first. It's unique, and I like that. Hits to Basilisk and Medusas in the formation that are within 2 inches of a Storm Sword visible to the target. The shooter still has to be able to would have had to be able to normally shoot at the Storm Swords. They can be the shots can be reallocated to the Storm Sword, and the Storm Sword has a 2-up save. So it improves your survivability, your ability to just not take the damage. Also, Storm Swords have 2 wounds apiece, and you might want to keep them alive longer. One shot comes in at, one Vanquisher cannon shot comes through, hits your Medusa. You know that you're going to lose a Medusa doing that. You might take a wound on a Storm Sword. You'll have a 50-50 chance. You'll have to re-roll if you do succeed, but that's still better. That's a lot better than you had with the Medusa, who's going to need to roll very well. This formation will cost you 1 box of artillery for the unupgraded, as well as a box and a half of Storm Swords, which that box can make 3 tanks. Or it's going to cost you a box and a half of artillery and 3 boxes of Storm Sword. You get 2 Storm Swords in that box. You get 2 tanks in that box, and they can be made into 3 different things. So you're going to buy 3 boxes to make 6 tanks. It's a bit pricey. It feels a lot. There's other formations that have been in these legends that are pricier. It feels very pricey because you're only getting 6 tanks for 3 boxes. If you magnetize them, or even just use friction to push fit them, you have a lot of options with those 6 tanks. There's another formation there's the Titan Hunter formation that needs a minimum of 3 Shadow Swords. You can use that on rainy days where you don't want to use the Oathsworn Thyros Siegebreaker Company. That's up to you. But let's get into the pros. As I already said, it's a unique ability, keeps your weaker artillery alive, by putting wounds onto the tougher tanks. I like that. They all go very well to be very thematic. The idea of all this artillery and long range shot and the demolisher cannons, and there's at a minimum you have 7 shots that can go into a building to bring it down. That's cool. The Medusas have demolisher, but it's a 12-inch gun on the Medusas. They also don't have to be in line of sight, so you can bring them up to the front of one set of buildings and lob over them to hit the buildings in the back. That's cool. You will have a penalty to hit when you do that, because you're not in the artillery company where they have the ability to ignore that penalty. Let's go to the cons. You might have noticed I didn't tell you how many points you save for the first level, and that is because you don't. You don't save any points in that first level. If they had made this where it was 3 individual detachments of storm swords, each detachment would have cost 100 points, and that would have made it a 20-point savings. And then if they did that again, you'd actually have a 60-point savings total by doing it that way, and it would help you. It would make you more able to spread to have your storm swords placed where they can be shot at, and you can do the reallocations. That would have been really that would have changed that. But as it is, there is no savings at that first level, and only 20 points at the upgraded level. It is the worst savings that you have of any of the formations of Legend, and that's a boo at a minimum. Maybe it doesn't make something not great, but it does make something not feel valued. There's other formations. I didn't go through and look and see what the best points savings was. The Tallarn Carmine has about middle level of savings, and then I think one of the Space Marine ones has a really good one, and one of them has kind of an okay one. But this is just the worst. Especially when you consider that this is costing 1/3 of your army. This is like the Alpha Legion formation where it is 970 points, or no, 950 points, and the Alpha Legion one. The Alpha Legion, the total thing was 930 points. So it actually costs more than that. It costs more than that, and you don't even get as much saved. The ability also is, I like it, but it's kind of weak because it only works when the batteries are exposed. If you have your artillery battery where it should be, at least for the Basilisk, nobody should be able to see it. It can't even shoot within 8 inches of itself. So it should be behind something in the back of your army, and then you should have some units, some infantry around it with it to help protect it. The only tanks that are the only artillery that's gonna benefit from the ability really is going to be your Basilisks. Your Medusas, because they need to get closer, but you only get one of them. If you had gotten two Medusa units instead of Basilisk units, that would be a lot better. It would make your point savings a lot worse. You need to drop some more points on it for them to make that work. But yeah, I just don't like that. I'm gonna have to give this formation a 2 out of 5. It's only not a 1 because it's got a unique ability, even though that unique ability is kind of not the best. So that wraps up all of the formations of Legends that we have so far. There are 2 more formations. Well, no. There's a few more formations that are kind of unique and interesting in the Devastation of Tallarn. You've got the whatever the Terminator Siege one is, where everybody's mounted up and ready to go. That's interesting. It's not a formation legend. You can take as many as you want. They're expensive. They'll get expensive, at least, with all the Spartans and Land Raiders that you can have running around with them. And then there's the formation with the Titan Hunter formation, where it's got a bunch of Shadow Swords in it. They're cool. They're not limited. You'll probably limit yourself on them, to be honest. But they do exist. We're not going to talk about them, at least not for a while. We do have the Rise of the Dark Mechanicum coming out soon. It will have more formations of Legends. I think there's 3 in it, if I remember properly. And at some point, I will get around to talking about those after I have that book and after I have some time to try the units a little and see how those go. But for now, this is that. Thank you for watching this. If I missed the mark on these, let me know what you think about these ratings that I gave them. I'd love to hear how you would grade them. If I missed something, maybe this is the best formation there is. Maybe it's not. Maybe I said something else was better and it wasn't. Let me know. But as always, thanks for flying by. This has been Eagle Spire Gaming. Have a great day.